Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I have with me a very accomplished entrepreneur in the area of climate and climate change, Mr. Francisco Benedito from Spain. Fran, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Fran is the CEO of ClimateTrade. He's the co-founder of ClimateCoin. He was awarded as the best organization for decarbonizing the travel industry, and he has been voted amongst the top 100 SDG influencers. So, Fran, let's talk about ClimateTrade. Tell me about this venture.
Well, ClimateTrade is a marketplace focused on the climate space. Mm-hmm. We detected back in 2017 that there were some inefficiencies in the carbon markets, and well, we can call it climate markets because it's not only about carbon. Mm-hmm. And basically what we found out is that we could apply technology to make this more efficient, more transparent, and more traceable. Okay. So that's when we created the platform. Basically, ClimateTrade is a marketplace where we put in touch developers of climate-related projects worldwide. Mm-hmm. with corporations all around the world in order to be able to offset their carbon footprint or buy climate-related products, and services. So basically, for you to see carbon markets, which is important for the people to understand what is ClimateTrade.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
So basically, carbon markets are back in 1997 in the UN, in one of the events that the UN makes every year, the COP. Last year was in Glasgow, as you guys know. Mm-hmm. So in that fifth one, it was in Japan. So it was created what is called the Protocol of Kyoto. So basically, the carbon credits were created in order to incentivize the generation of projects and be able to fund projects all around the world in order to decarbonize the planet. Mm-hmm. So basically, a company that is polluting in a, let's say, developed country or like economies that are more advanced, these companies need to pay for the pollution, where to companies that do the opposite in emerging markets. Why is this? Because normally emerging markets do not have funding for, let's say, funding that project. So we bring the thing to the companies that are polluting. And so we measure these on tons of CO2. Every ton of CO2 emitted is one carbon credit. So what we do is we put in touch the people that is making projects, reforestation, renewable projects, all these, generate mitigations and avoidance of CO2. And they sell that to the companies that do the opposite, that pollute.
Very interesting.
So basically, we create a marketplace that we put in touch both, and we get a fee per transaction.
Wonderful. So for my viewers and listeners, help me understand with a few examples, which are some of the kind of businesses that are climate negative and some which are climate positive.
Like basically, imagine the most polluting sectors in the world are oil companies. Airline sector is very relevant also. Transportation, fashion. So basically, today, in terms of sectors that we are working with, and that we can say the financial industry is very advanced on this, and it moved straightforward in terms to become carbon neutral. At the end, to say carbon negative or carbon positive, it requires a little bit more, not only being carbon neutral. So, I mean, for you to see, for the audience to see and to hear, is basically you have a target, So the companies, thanks to Paris Agreement, you have a target towards 2050, or before. Like the companies and governments need to achieve zero emissions, especially the governments, by 2050. So obviously that comes to the companies, and there is a strong regulations in Europe coming up on that part. So basically the companies establish a target to achieve net zero, to achieve net zero.
So a philosophical question for you. if I am if I am a company which is releasing a lot of pollution and carbon negative in the environment, but I make a lot of money, I can buy credits and continue to do all the negative things.
Well, that's not going to happen, and I explain you why. I mean, there are two things. That's why we created the ClimateTrade. No, basically, ClimateTrade uses blockchain technology to provide transparency and traceability of the funds. No, so when you do an offset, when you buy an offset, the most important part is to know two things. One is that effectively that offset is a high quality offset that is being canceled. It is, I mean, it's been put under your name in terms of my tone is being put it under my name for real. And that's what in the past was called double counting, because people were selling several times the same car. But the most important part is to know that the funds are going to the developer, because he's the one that is making the efforts to do that. And I go to your point. I mean, if I'm a company that I'm polluting, first thing, we need to know if that company is doing greenwashing or is not doing.
Yes.
Right. So for that is important transparency and traceability. I want the funds to see the funds that go to the developer and pay the fair price to the developer. That's very important, because if you develop a project, you waste your money, you invest your money, and then you don't have any return. We are not saving the planet. No, we are not making efforts on that side.
That's it.
But second thing that is important on your question, the regulations and consumers and investors are not going to let these companies to do that. I mean, the investors are putting pressure in listed companies to do things correctly, because if not, the investors of that investors won't pour money on their investment funds. You know,
well said.
And consumers the same.
Wonderful, wonderful. So based on all your experience, Fran, what are some of the key challenges we face with regard to climate change?
Always has been about finance. So it is, I mean, I really liked, I was happy to hear about Elon Musk, which obviously most of us admire, no? And we hear that they were saying, okay, why don't you pay from your fortune these many millions, thousands, I don't know how the amount exact that it was, in order to,
what he had said.
Sorry?
6 billion.
6 billion. So it was 6 billion. So they were saying, okay, why don't you pay 6 billion and say, okay, how can I know where my money is going?
Correct.
That's traceability. That's transparency. I mean, if we get that, that's blockchain, no? That's why we use blockchain for this. I want to know where my money is going. I want to see how much impact, my positive impact, my money is generated. I don't want my money to go to the pocket of an inefficient government or whatever, no?
True,
so that's the thing, no? So the problem of the world is we need to put the money in the right places to generate a positive impact. But that's why we created the organization. We want to help technologies, projects that can be a scale up with not only finance, guidance, and like we are helping companies that do not have any commercial power like we do, but they are brilliant technologies or scientists that we are helping to grow that technologies. No, nice. So basically we need that.
And you know, the world is going through a pandemic, almost 2 years now. It is often said that the pandemic has given Earth time to heal, and therefore a lot of the climate change problems have now been resolved. I'd love to get your perspective that, you know, the planet is able to heal itself, but then we as humans come and mess it up every time.
That's exactly like that. I mean, as soon as we get, I mean, the only good thing we had about the pandemic is that some people changed his mindset. That's in my opinion, the only thing. Like, we saw this as an advice for what is about to come. So if that is helping us to change our mindset, to recycle more, to not drop waste anywhere, to behave more, to do more I always say that is a small efforts by any one of us. No, I mean, I'm doing the right things in my whole day in terms of recycling, in terms of not using the energy, I'm not wasting energy, in terms of many other things. No, and so, but rehealing the planet, it didn't happen, because at the moment we start again, we start
Yes.
faster, because we need to recover all that time that we lost. So it goes faster, and it's so you can see it in the different things that happened in the planet since then, no, in terms economically. So no, it didn't reheal, but I think that I'm positive in terms of that change of mindset for some part of the planet.
So, Fran, you mentioned that in ClimateTrade, you also monitor different organizations about how they are performing.
Yeah.
Over the years, have you started to see an improvement in top managements about climate change problems?
Of course, this has changed radically. I mean, especially in Europe, there are regulations that are asking the companies to report every year about sustainability, like the listed companies pretty much do all around the world. And there is also regulations that are coming to other countries regarding the investments. When you go to a bank, they ask you if you want your fund to be sustainable. And there are ratings on all the companies. There are softwares that make the ratings. So every asset manager now is using, or is starting to use, a rating for the companies that he's analyzing in order to include in his portfolio. So that's super important. And that's a change that is going to pay, no? And at the end, we will go more on that part. I even say that, and I'm positive on that every quarter, as we look the results of the companies, we will look more to the ESG results than to the monetary results of a company. It is important for a company to make more money every quarter. Well, I don't know. I mean, Warren Buffett doesn't think so, and he knows a little bit about this. And I mean, I think a company has to do well. Obviously, has to give money back to the shareholders, but we cannot jump over ESG indicators, and that's gonna get more weight every time. No,
very interesting. So my next question to you is that the younger generation in our world, the millennials and the Gen Zs, are already very conscious about climate change. Totally. And they're also very conscious about buying products from companies which are conscious about climate change. Based on all the work that you do, how can each one of us make ourselves more accountable and protect our climate?
Totally agree with you. I mean, consumers are not consumers anymore, are prosumers. So we determine what a brand at the end will be doing because of our consumer behaviors, and the young generations have it in the DNA, so that, which something I'm very happy for. At least we did something well, no, in terms of that change, no.
Correct.
And like in terms of what we can do, I mean, at the end is first thing is learning, no. I mean, we need to learn about how things work in terms of how the balances work, and how what the pain we are doing with the behaviors we have daily, no. I mean, it is better to I mean, obviously everybody now is acknowledging that they have to buy renewable power for their houses, and it's the first thing that people is doing, no. And it's not still massive, but many people is calling the electric power and saying, hey, I want my power to be green. I don't have, okay, I'll move to another company. No, so that's things that we can do even with the small companies very rapidly.
Right.
And then obviously recycle. Don't throw waste anywhere you go. I mean, we see beaches, we see all areas on the sea that are full of garbage, no, and then do things that we are today behaving like buying plastics out of things that today I was talking to my wife this morning and say we were eating pineapple, and I say, hey, why are we buying packaged pineapple? Why are not we buying a pineapple, cut it, and then put it in a something to so it doesn't get oxidated. No, she said, but I recycle the plastic when it comes to pineapple. Yeah, but still you are building that plastic. No, so we have to be more rational about all the process of the things that we do during the day.
What a great example. Thank you. So, Fran, now let's talk a little bit about ClimateCoin. You know, you are the co-founder of ClimateCoin, and cryptocurrencies are, you know, shaking the entire world. Tell me a little bit about ClimateCoin and what was the background.
Very happy to do it. I mean, the background is for you to see the picture. I was a banker for 15 years. At the same time, I created my first company when I was 16 years old. So I was entrepreneur, and my passion was there still. And so I've been in one of the leading technology banks in the world, working as a regional manager at some point. And I became one of the early, let's say, not experts, but acknowledgers of a blockchain in the European Union at the very beginning with the Bitcoin. And so I start to get, I like technology, is one of my passions is technology innovations and all that. So I saw a huge trend coming in 2016 about climate. And like, you know, that Stanford speech about Steve Jobs putting the dots together, it happened. No, it happened because my daughter was coming. One of the people that was working with me in the bank, that is my partner Pedro, from the very beginning. His daughter was coming at the same age. It was like pretty much 2 months difference. And we say we gotta do something. And we say, okay, why don't we apply technology to climate? And let's bring innovations and let's fund that innovations. To say, why don't we create the ClimateCoin? So we registered the ClimateCoin worldwide, the brand, and we started to marketize that. But the reality was that the world was not ready yet for that. It was too early. Even we have some inconveniences with the let's say regulators that wanted to be asked to be regulated and all that. It was too early. The things were not still regulated, no, as they are today, no. So from that we learned a lot in terms of what we had to do then with the ClimateTrade. What the companies wanted, they didn't want to work with a token. They was too early also. So what we did is we said, okay, let's stop it a little bit and let's come back whenever the world is ready, no? So ClimateCoin is relaunching on April now, April this year. So now pretty much everyone knows us in the climate space. We know pretty much everyone in the climate space also. And we have surrounded ourselves from the biggest professionals in the climate world, which is, for example, the CEO is going to be Pedro Ramon, which is one of the influential leaders, my partner from the beginning in LinkedIn. And together with him is going to be one of the most important persons in the climate space, in the financial climate space today, who is leaving his position to become the CEO of ClimateCoin. So that will be announced at the end of February. And we will be launching what is called Green Climate DAO. You can check it in greenclimatedao.com or in climatecoin.com. And it will be relaunched in Miami, April 22, Earth Day. And we will be, we already have several countries that are supporting us in order to use ClimateCoin to fund their mitigations, the carbon mitigations. So yeah, very excited of what is coming.
Wonderful. So tell me,
ClimateCoin. Yeah, sorry.
No, sorry, my apologies. Go ahead.
ClimateCoin is an asset-backed token. So basically, when you buy a ClimateCoin, you buy a carbon credit. You can, let's say, not only invest in that project that you are supporting, but at the same time, like one project that generates carbon credits, you have a carbon credit in your hands, in your cell phone, in your wallet. So you can experiment the increase in price on carbon, or you can compensate your carbon footprint when you want, or you can pay with carbon.
Wow. So I have time for one more question, and I wanted to ask you that, you know, when you are talking of ClimateTrade, you're talking of companies being able to buy and sell carbon credits.
Yes.
Are you saying that ClimateCoin could become the currency in which organization can trade carbon credits?
Yes. basically is what we are trying to do. We have been working for 6 months with one of the biggest consulting firms in the world in order to develop what is going to be the strategy paper, the white paper of the company that will be released soon about ClimateCoin. And there are different phases of the project in different years, because as we said, we learned that the world has to be ready for certain things. But yes, I mean, when you hold a ClimateCoin, you hold carbon, and with that carbon, you can do several things, no? And one thing is offsetting your organization or your carbon footprint as a citizen. Another thing is obviously you want to value the price of carbon whenever it's going up, because we expect to go up the carbon exponentially, or you can use it to pay. Why not?
And how large, and this is my last question to you, how large is the market for carbon credits in the world?
It has increased since 2017 fivefold.
Wow.
So 5 times, and at the moment we are talking about billions of tons every year, but I couldn't say exactly the amount. No, it's more than 30 billion today probably.
Wow.
But I couldn't say exactly with exact.
Understand. On that note, friend, thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me about ClimateTrade, about ClimateCoin, about all the challenges that are being faced by our Earth because of climate, and how so many people are working so hard to mitigate the risks of climate change on our Earth, and what you are doing to be able to keep most of us sane and on track to make sure that we don't mess up Mother Earth. Thank you again, and good luck.
Of course. Thank you so much for your invitation. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
At your disposal. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.